Hello, everybody out in Facebook land. It's Adrienne here with Yoga for Migraine, and I'm here to start up my new lives again. My lives are going to be every Wednesday from now on, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 Eastern, and 7 British time. And every Wednesday, I'll come to give talks on wellness issues with migraine, and other days I'll bring a free yoga practice. So we'll alternate. I'll do a bit of both of talking and yoga. But today it's all talk. I'm going to be sharing my story of the struggles I had doing the Heal Your Headache migraine diet. And it's been quite a journey to get to this point where I'm speaking about my experience, and definitely have had quite a bit of pushback from people who have found the diet to be helpful. And I want to be super clear that I am so happy for folks who have found benefit from the Heal Your Headache diet, and keep on doing what you're doing. You're amazing. Everyone who supports it and is doing work to help others. But it was a very, I'll be honest, traumatic experience for me. And so it is hard for me to talk about it, and to have received a lot of negative pushback on me explaining why. So if you're here, I appreciate it. Go ahead and put in the comments where you're joining me from. I'd love to see who's here live. And while everybody's joining, I want to put out a plug for Beyond Migraine that is now enrolling for the first time since February. This is my revolutionary group coaching program that is even deeper and more supportive than I've ever had it since I first launched it back in February as a beta program. So if that's something that you are interested in learning more about, how we help people decrease their pain using the science of neuroscience and pain science and yoga to help you decrease your pain and live a life with less fear and more freedom. So I'm going to put, hey Jan, good to see you. I'm going to put the link to book a call and to learn more about the program here in the comments. All right, folks. So let's launch in, shall we? So I anticipated getting a fair amount of flack for speaking about Heal Your Headache. It's still hard, but I want to speak for folks who have struggled not only with maybe the Heal Your Headache diet, but any other diet that they've tried for migraine. As we all know, one strategy doesn't work for everybody, and that's okay. And we can share why that works for some and not others. So it's taken me a while to, feel comfortable to share about this. One, because there is a lot of hardcore support for this diet, and it's a pretty powerful and persuasive large group of supporters. There's Facebook groups, there's books, there's programs that really focus on diet as a primary solution for migraine. So as you can see on Instagram, I got a lot of people worried that I was putting down other people's strategies, and that's certainly not my intention. My intention is really to give comfort, solace, insights to those who didn't find it helpful, and some deeper understanding of why. So I definitely am challenging the status quo here a bit in this discussion. I don't follow any diet. I've followed many diets over the years, ranging from vegetarian to vegan, macrobiotic, Heal Your Headache. And I eat now from a place of awareness that I can feel after I drink a beer, I don't really feel that great. And that's what's informing more of my nutritional decisions in a way that feels healthy for me. So I do enjoy a lot of food that seems healthy on the outside, and I literally enjoy it. I don't feel like it's, you know, keeping me down. So that's a big part of it for me, is that you want to feel that food is enjoyable, that you enjoy eating, that it's pleasurable. And the more pleasure and enjoyment we have in our lives, the less pain that we have. And I'll get more into that. So here's my story. Here it goes. Back in 2010, in the early days of my migraine journey, when I was maybe getting 4 or 5 migraine attacks a month, I found the Heal Your Headache book by the neurologist Dr. Buchholz in my local Barnes & Noble and picked it up. I didn't know at that time much about migraine. There wasn't Facebook groups about migraine at that point, and I was just desperate for answers, like I'm sure so many of you can relate to. So this book was originally published in 2002. So it's about 20 years old, and the research that went into it has now progressed a lot since then. So these are kind of the two takeaways I took from the book. I will be completely honest, I don't have the book anymore because it actually was such a traumatic, triggering experience for me. So this is what my memory recalls that were my main takeaways. One, that amino acids, tyramine specifically, were a major trigger for many people with migraine. So in order to improve your migraine symptoms, you can cut out that amino acid in kind of a bunch of random foods. It's not like you just cut dairy or just cut wheat. It's ranging from everything from cheese to bananas. Fermented foods, aged foods tend to have more of this amino acid. And then the second premise was that triptans and over-the-counter painkillers very easily lead people to what then was called rebound. Now we call something more kind than medication, overuse and rebound, which I'll talk about soon. But he challenged that conventional wisdom that you should not take more than 9 of those per month, but that really those triptans and over-the-counter meds were leading to people getting chronic much more easily than conventional wisdom held. So part of the protocol was to cut out cold turkey the meds that you were on. So to me, that sounded like a pretty simple solution. Okay, I'm gonna just switch around my diet. The author was a neurologist, obviously had a lot of authority and seemed to have a lot of expertise. So back then I gave the diet, full go. I'm, a high achiever. I'm not going to half-ass anything. Gave it my full go for a solid 3 months. And it was one of the more miserable times of my life. And it also not only was very emotionally challenging, but did not improve my migraine symptoms one bit. So let me check in with you guys, see if there's any comments. I see a lot from Jan, but if you are watching, I'd love to hear from where you're joining me from, and if you've tried the Heal Your Headache diet or any other diet for migraine. So don't be afraid to share. All right, let me get my screen back. All right, so what was challenging for me? What was so hard for me? One, I found the diet to be fairly complicated, as it's not just one food group that you're encouraged to eliminate, like dairy, but it seemed like it was just from every food group and fairly random things to keep track of. So for me, one of the hardest foods to give up was cheese, and soy sauce randomly was really hard to work around. And the author suggested American cheese, in the little plastic thing, and I couldn't do that. I struggled with the processed cheese and not feeling very limited. And cooking just felt like a chore. Like for every meal, I had to be a detective, consult the list. What can I eat? What can I not eat? And it really, killed my enjoyment of eating at a time when I was very desperate, and food was one of the few pleasures that I still had at that time. I will say that I'm someone who had a eating disorder as a teenager and was nearly hospitalized for losing an unhealthy amount of weight. So I can say that this, I'm sure, was a big part of the challenge I had with this diet, but I know that I'm not alone because eating disorders are very common, especially among women. And to be in a place where food was no longer enjoyable for me, it just wasn't a good place for me emotionally to be in again. And it was a dangerous time to be experiencing alone without support. Definitely brought up a lot of challenges I had with that sense of control with food and trying to limit, everything. So not everybody has those triggers, and I totally get it. So one of the more challenging parts of the Heal Your Headache protocol that the book suggests that I don't hear that many people actually talk about. I do hear that people talk about the diet a lot more, but the author does advise people with migraine to discontinue their main pain meds like triptans or analgesics. And I feel like that is fairly reckless advice to give in a book without having the person reading the book have the support or supervision of a doctor or a guide or other strategies to help them through the pain. So many people with migraine rely on pain medication to get them through each day. And I will say, I do feel like that there is some science and truth behind the fact that yes, the more medication you use, the more likely your system is going to get used to the medication and it won't work as well, and that can lead to the chronification of migraine. Totally feel like that is part of what happened with me. But I felt like cutting my pain meds cold turkey led to days on end of excruciating pain where I was literally in tears, feeling hopeless, feeling like I couldn't work, I couldn't do anything. And I persevered. And, if you're one of those people that is unable to take pain medication, and just have to suffer through migraine attacks without anything, like my heart goes out to you because I know just how terrible it can be. But I felt like, okay, I can just do this. I can persevere. Like, I'm going to go through this cleanse. I'm going to get to the promised land of no more migraine attacks. It's going to be worth it. But for me, it didn't budge my migraine attacks. In fact, things started getting worse from there, and my mental health also took a good nosedive at that time. So let me know in the comments if you're joining me live, if you're watching the replay, write #live, #replay. Share with me if this resonates, if you have felt similarly, or even if you're like, no, healing my headache, like changed my life. I swear by it. Oh, Angie's here. Keto was hard and didn't help. Yeah, there are so many more diets out there besides the Heal Your Headache low tyramine diet. So let's talk about the dieting part. So in this day and age, people tend to gravitate toward diet as a solution for nearly every kind of health issue. And there's definitely a lot of great science behind nutrition and not eating processed food. It gives people a sense of control when they're faced with an uncertain and unpredictable health condition. It's also something that is simple and an easy solution to describe and package and sell to others, which is why there's so many of them. If you go to the bookstore, there are like 30 or 40 books on different diets for everything to solve all your problems. And I'll reiterate, if it solved your problem, I'm super happy for you. It just doesn't solve the problem for everybody, and it might not be the only part of the solution. So in doing more research since then, this book came out in the early 2000s. About 20 years later, we have so much more research, not only on migraine, but also neuroscience and the understanding of what exacerbates pain. The tyramine-free diet doesn't have a whole lot of consistent research to back it up. And I'll go ahead and actually put a link in on that so that you can read up a little bit more. Sure, there's people that can say, well, you can find a study to support any position for or against, but I think it's important to do, to find what is the most recent research as well. So this is an article that I love that I'm posting on the Seeds for Migraine Management program by Dr. Amal Starling, who's like my superhero rock star neurologist that I admire. And she goes into the research, or lack thereof, really, of many diets, including tyramine for migraine. In this article, also, she talks about how there are so many other triggers that give you so much more bang for your buck than this one amino acid. And I teach people in Beyond Migraine what those triggers are and how to manage them, sleep being one of the biggest ones. So it's definitely a multi-pronged approach, but it's not that, tyramine is not that common of a trigger for people with migraine. If it is one for you and it solved it, like, you're gold. But it's not as common as people might think. So when I was, having to analyze my shopping list, what I was cooking for every meal, and also eliminating foods that I love, I was inadvertently putting my body on high alert in fear of doing the right thing. And when your body is in high alert, neuroscience now tells us that is a factor that contributes to more physical pain. So at that time, I didn't notice that I was in high alert or stressed out, but all these things start pushing one over the edge to develop more pain, even when they're trying so hard to do the right thing to decrease their pain. It's almost like the pressure that people put on themselves actually shoots themselves in the foot. So that's the diet part. And then the other part that was so challenging for me is cutting my pain medication cold turkey without supervision, without support, without any other strategies to help me through it. When people are addicted to legal or illegal drugs, they go into a center and get detoxed with a lot of help, even when people are taking, more pain medication for migraine than is helpful for them. The best way to cut down is really to, go to a headache clinic and go through the detox process, because it's friggin' hard and painful to do on your own. So the fact that, so much weight was put by this theory on decreasing your pain meds to no more than 3 a month. One is really not that corroborated by many other doctors. It's the conventional wisdom is 9 triptans or analgesics per month. And the idea is that, if you take more than that, you might come into that rebound, or now it's called medication adaptation headache, is more of a preferred term. So the theory, I think, is really behind, making sure people don't get to medication adaptation headache is very sound. And I genuinely think that's part of what got me into chronic migraine, is that increasing of medication use. But I just feel like deciding to drop all of your medication cold turkey because you read something in a book without talking with your doctor, without having any other supportive therapies, is really challenging and maybe not safe for everybody. So where does that leave me? Personally, the program, was a fairly traumatic, ineffective experience for me. And that's not to say that it doesn't help many other people. And it's not to say that tyramine is not a trigger for you. It all takes some experimentation. But what I want to leave you with is that, in my experience, the more I obsessed about fixing my migraine disease, and at that time it was relatively mild to what it became, the more I hyper-focused on it, the more depressed I became. And I was so focused on migraine that the rest of my life became unimportant and unpleasurable. And that contributed to more pain for me than less pain. So if you're miserable emotionally and physically, trying out a strategy that you've heard everybody else has benefited from, I encourage you to trust yourself. If it's not working, if it's causing you to be more sad, anxious, overwhelmed, give yourself permission to stop. Get support. Get something that work with a care, someone who can help you, a doctor, whether it's a doctor, whether it's someone who does more alternative therapies. But when I was trying so hard at a strategy that was truly causing me so much suffering, it's the exact opposite approach that you want to take when dealing with pain. With pain, pain thrives on fear. It thrives on misery, emotional misery, physical misery. And what decreases pain is pleasure, safety, feeling good. And that's not just like woo-woo, new age yoga stuff. Like, this is the current neuroscience. This is what is like amazing, right? Our brains are neuroplastic, and that our brains can get in patterns, but that we can change those patterns using our minds, our breath, our bodies, to bring our body into safety and out of fear. So I hope that no one feels like they ever need to suffer alone, that if something isn't working, like, trust yourself, get help. You don't need to suffer alone. Pain hurts enough, and I want you to know that the solution to resolving, to turning down your pain, shouldn't hurt. And if it is, get some help. So I am it's a little bit of like a relief to share that. It was not easy for me to share my experience, and I hope it's been helpful for some people, or maybe some people can relate. I think looks like we've got a lot of comments. Thanks, Elizabeth, for joining in and giving some other strategies as well. You mentioned, the bang for your buck is highly personal. Absolutely. What Amal Starling talks about in the Seeds program is really like what to start with. What are like the biggest, the triggers that have not only the most research, but that across the board with migraine patients have been the most common. So if you're just starting out on your migraine journey, start with those. Start with your sleep. Start with regular eating and drinking. Start with decreasing your stress, creating that sense of safety. There's so many other like little minute triggers that might be totally the missing piece for someone. But it, to me, is more efficient to start with like kind of those big ones that benefit other aspects of your life, like sleep. If your sleep sucks, the rest of your life is probably going to be really hard to do. And then you can try other things. So everyone is absolutely different. And I'm here to offer comfort, support. I don't want you to suffer. And if diet has helped you, I'm so happy for you. If diet has been a struggle, know that there's so many other strategies. And if you want help learning how to move through your migraine struggles into a place of more freedom, less pain, you're welcome to reach out, send me a DM, or I posted the link to book a call for Beyond Migraine. So I'm signing off. Love you all, and see you next Wednesday. Next Wednesday, after this big week, I'm going to give you a free yoga class and shut my big mouth. So we'll see you then. Bye, folks.